What's going on, everyone? So we're inching closer and closer to the upcoming Scream 7, and you're starting to get more and more of the cast revealed, right? Now, Patrick Dempsey, he's still supposedly in talks, but he's expected to return. He's even kind of touched on, they just finalizing stuff, trying to get through the back end of it all, and then he's expected to return. Plus, he is in another Spyglass horror film that's supposed to be coming up, so I think it's safe to say that he's going to be in Scream 7. But, you have Gale Weathers, Courtney Cox, Neve Campbell as Sidney Prescott, right? And then you have kind of like the new cast that's starting to trickle in, right? And you have like Sidney's daughter's cast. You have who many believe is going to be her boyfriend, her best friend, right? You even got the kid from Gen Z, or Gen V, sorry, that is supposed to, play a role. There's talks about, like, is he the creepy neighbor? Is he the boyfriend? He's the killer, right? Like, you're starting to get the bits and pieces of the newer cast. And so far, you have like a handful of characters, right? So far, it looks like you have, 7, right? I'm sure they're not done, because you also have like Sydney's other daughter. You have like the baby that she was pushing in the stroller, right? I'm sure you're gonna have like kind of like the throwaway characters and stuff like that, right? Like, so it's very possible we have kind of like the core characters, kind of like your front 7. Maybe there's another character or two that's like your 8th or 9th, but I think we are kind of in the like, here's the main group, right? And I'm fine with them kind of just staying where they're at, right? Again, there's gonna be more, because there'll probably be like people that are cast as teachers and like security guards or whatever, right? Like, there's just gonna be several other actors and actresses, but overall, as far as like the main group, I'm fine if that's it. If it's just like, you got Sidney, Gale, Mark Kincaid, right? And then you got, Sidney's daughter, her best friend, her boyfriend, a weird, creepy guy, or another friend group or whatever. And then, maybe you have like, maybe add in like 2 more that are like Sydney's friends, right? Because it's supposed to be more Sidney and Gale focused. So, maybe have like add in like, Sydney's best friend and then, like the neighbor or whatever, right? Because there's supposed to be a neighbor in this. So there you go, right? So maybe 2 more. But the point is I would prefer to see this Scream film, and this is just my opinion, and of course I want to hear yours down in the comments below, but for me, I would rather just see kind of a nice, tight, just cast script where you're not getting too convoluted. Where, like, I obviously want a kill count, but I want memorable kills. I prefer the memorable kills over a large body count. For example, Scream 6. Right? Like, Scream 6 had like 13 people die. But in reality, it was 1. It was like Annika. Right? Because the others were like everybody in the bodega and then like the 3 killers. Right? Like, nobody died in that movie. Right? So like, I don't want like a high kill count just to have a high kill count. Great example. Look at 96. Seriously, look at Scream 6 or Scream 1996, right? The original Scream. That was as close to a perfect movie as possible. It was nice, it was tight. The cast and crew, you had, really 5, 6 characters, right? Drew Barrymore was advertised and she was killed in the first 5 minutes, right? But like, literally, you had like the core group, you had like the cop that's trying to save the day in Dewey. That's essentially it, right? It was nice, tight. Here's a handful of characters. Only like, there's only like 6 deaths in that entire movie, but you remembered all of them. To this day, you still remember and know all of them because they were memorable. It wasn't this huge kill count. You remembered all of them. I mean, there were large stretches in that film where nobody died and you didn't notice. Why? Because the story itself was nice and tight and compact and boom, 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 boom. The pacing was great, right? The characters were great. you developed and you really learned the characters. That's one of the problems with Scream. I mean, you could argue ever since 96, Scream 2 wasn't as good character development wise as 96 was. It wasn't as bad as like it's progressed here, but it's still like, like Mickey. Mickey had the potential to be the greatest Ghostface unanimously. And they just like had him in the movie for 5 minutes and then you never saw him again until he was revealed, right? They did the same thing with Roman. Like, I'm not a fan of that. I'm not a fan of like, oh, here's a character you don't remember because you only saw him for 5 minutes and that's how you never saw them coming, did you? It's like, well, no, because we didn't see them the whole movie, right? So it's like, all right. But point is, as I digress, I want to get back to just character development, storytelling, right? Like, that's what made 96 so great. The character and story is so great. I mean, people to this day still want like all the characters back. Like there's people that have talked about, oh, what about Tatum as like, I mean, even Rose McGowan talked about it, right? Like Tatum could add like another, like his twin sister or whatever. And everyone was like, yeah, like that sounds great. Just get her back, right? I mean, it's not even counting Stu, right? I mean, you have like half the fan base that wants Stu to return, maybe even more than that, right? Like, so again, you have these characters that are so beloved, so memorable that they built the characters. I mean, we got 2 films with the core 4, and we don't even know who any of them are. Like, who is Chad? Like, who is he as a character? Right? Like, we knew he was the jock. Why? Oh, because he wore a Letterman jacket in the first one. Like, that's it. Outside of that, we didn't know. Like, who's Mindy? Okay, yeah, she's the movie geek, but like, to what extent? Like, there was depth to Randy. It wasn't just that Randy was the movie nerd. It wasn't that just Randy gave movie speeches. And it was like, oh, he's the movie. No, it was, you established it. You had him in settings. You had him in environments. You had him through dialogue. Right? Like, you never saw, in 96, you never saw characters like alone, really. Right? They were always in groups. It'd be like Billy, Stu, and Randy, and, Tatum, Stu, and, Sydney. And, it's just, they built characters through one another. You knew who Stu was, the goofy class clown that's just says dumb stuff, right? Like, but everybody, like, you knew all those guys. You knew the Stu in high school. You knew the Rose McGowan or the Tatum in high school, right? Like, you knew the Sydney and the Billy and you knew these characters. Right? Like, you knew and understood these characters. And it's just like, you got into like Scream 5 and 6, however you felt about the movie, character development was not great. Especially Scream 5. 6 was better than Scream 5 was, but not by like a huge margin. I mean, Scream 5 was so bad with character development, the general consensus was to get rid of Sam. That's not good. Right? And the writing, in my opinion, like, there's just, as much as I love Scream, there have been their issues with Scream, and it's been very apparent. It's just stuff I don't think you can just like completely ignore or look past, right? That doesn't mean that they were terrible movies or anything like that. It just, again, you got to be honest, right? And if we're being honest, Scream 5 and 6 didn't do the best storytelling wise as well as character development wise. But I think if you keep it a nice tight cast, which is kind of what I was excited for with Scream 6, right? Because it just kind of was like the core 4, and then here's like 4 other characters. And I was like, okay, perfect. But then no one died. Like, that was the problem. I think if you can get back to a nice tight cast, you have Ghostface, right? Like, boom, here you go. Here's Ghostface. Here's, 10 characters that are, because Sydney, you don't, like, I'm not saying you don't want to keep developing her character and stuff, but we know who Sydney is, right? So you just need to kind of have her involved, right? Like the family, like Gail, we know who Gail is. Like, again, I'm not saying I don't want to see her character develop, but I'm saying, like, you don't need to spend the entire movie having us learn who Sydney is, having us learn who Gale is, right? Like, even Mark Kincaid to an extent. I mean, obviously, we haven't seen him in so long, so I think you need to do a little more work with him than you would have to do with others. But, like, there's characters that, and then, like the throwaway characters and stuff like that. But, whoever your main core group is, you need to do a good job of developing those. Keep it tight, keep it nice, keep the story flush and fluid. Ghostface running around, slashing through the town, right? You don't need to rely on kills so heavily if the story is good. Great example, again, Scream 96. There are 10-minute sequences where nobody dies. Like, nothing even crazy happens. But you don't notice it because it fits the story. So much is going, right? They set the undertone, or like see Ghostface in the background, right? Like, or somebody gets a phone call or whatever. There's ways to build that suspense and that tension and that without somebody having to be killed, right? Like, I want to get back to that. Get back to setting the ambiance. Get back to setting the table on what the Scream film's supposed to be. And I think the best way to do that is just keep nice, tight script rather than having 15 characters, right? Like, like you saw that with Scream 5, right? Like, they had like 13 characters or whatever. It was just like, wow, right? But guess what happened, right? Like, half of the characters that everyone really wanted to see all died without any story to, like, Wes. You got like 2 scenes with him. Kyle Gallner's character, right? Vince, like, people were all excited about him, and he was in the film for like 30 seconds. You got like literally every sequence he was in were all in the trailer, and his sequences in the trailer were only like 12 seconds. Like, the guy was in the movie for a minute, like minute and 15 seconds, and like a minute of it was his kill, right? Like, just again, you kind of go down the list, right? Like, I'd rather flush out the characters personally. But anyway, as always, this is a discussion, and I pass the question on you. Let me know your thoughts and opinions down in the comments below. What do you think? How do you feel? What are your thoughts? Do you agree with me? Do you disagree with me? Kind of mixed in the middle. However you feel, whatever your thoughts are, I'd love to hear it either way. So let me know down in the comments below. That being said, if you haven't liked this video, hit that like button. Helps me a lot. So we enjoy these types of videos, and I truly appreciate it. Not subscribe channel, hit that subscribe button. Turn on the bell notifications. Appreciate y'all. See you in the next one. Thank you.